So this is the vintage flowers motif. So I've got some colors mixed up here that we'll be using, and I'll go ahead and work on this demo with you. Okay, so one of the things I like to do is to come around the outside of these petals and deposit some of the stronger color that's straight out of the box. If you mix something up like I did in my original, I had, I think, a mixture. This is just Sunset in the Tropical set. And I'm laying in some color here, especially around this inside that's darker. And pick that up. Now I'm going to start pulling with a clear brush some of that pigment off of the line, and you'll see it'll have a nice little blend to it, so that there's still some pigment in that area that I laid down, but it puts a nice little whitewash of that same color in a different tone or weight in here. Of course, you can make your flower whatever color you've got at home, or I think in mine I use like a mixture of hibiscus and sunset for the example. Sometimes it's a little harder to mix them up and get real strong colors, so you just have to play with it a little bit on your color mixture that you can get enough pigment in the end of your brush. And pull that in here. I'm going to add some stronger across here, especially where I went outside of the lines to kind of redefine where the edge of those petals is. Okay. Now I'll just touch up around here a little bit. Don't want to overwork it too much. It's better to let it dry and just sort of see how you like it once it's dried a little bit more. Get some texture in there. Okay, so you would do that again 3 more times. So I'll do that and speed it up so you can kind of see what I'm doing. You saw that I went back in here actually and put some darker lines, because really I should have let those dry a little longer, like you saw that I did with that second one, and that way it keeps the lines from disappearing. So patience really wins the day. I was trying to hustle because of the video, but sometimes you can't do that. You've just got to let it dry, let those deposits settle in, so that they don't bleed into the rest in a way that you're not happy with. So now we're going to work on some of these leaves. I had mixed up a couple of greens here, and you can always put like this parrot or a yellow underneath some of your leaves and let that dry. We don't want to get into any of our flowers, so we'll move around a little bit just to stay out of the way. So we keep going and filling in these leaves the way we want them with different layers. So I'm adding this green. I want to put a little bit more yellow under a few of these. I like the way that that's looking. And I'll let that dry before I come back in and go over those. To make these look good and realistic, it just takes the time and patience to mix up the color and distribute that. And then go back in and do more layers. I think I'll put a little bit of this gold color behind here. Putting that on afterward. And I'll make a little corally color here. So you can choose your own colors. To make your bouquet, add a little bit more pink in here just to tie the colors in a little better. Okay, so we've finished up a lot of our details. You can go in here and continue to add layers without overworking your painting. And it gives that more realistic look. You can also, if you do really tiny lines, you can come in here and do some of the stems, paint them if you would like, but you just want to make sure that you've got a good steady hand to do that. I usually pull them toward myself so that my hand can be more steady and more consistent in its line weight. All right, now this is dry, so I'll pull that pigment in here. Okay, if you want to go over the outside of this and you want like that antique-y look, you can leave it like this white, or if you want to do that, you would just make sure your pigment around the edges is pretty dry. I just did those stems, so I want to be careful not to get those into here. Just laying down a very thin film layer of water. I don't want to buckle my paper, so I'm not going to do too much. And now I'm just going to very lightly put in this kind of tea-stained look, making it look a little more vintage, as the title says. And I don't have to go all the way to the outside. And in these spaces, you just want to be careful that you don't get into that green too much or at all. So if you can see where you're going pretty well, you can put just a thin layer of water in there. It'll be easier to tap the color in without getting too close. All right, so I'm turning my paper around so I don't get my hand in it. Just going around here with that film of water. A couple of places in there. And I'm okay with the way that that looks. Filling in some additional areas here.